NAIA football is the true version of what college football is supposed to be. And it is the best classroom experience an 18 to 22-year-old male can have. One of the most valuable parts of a college education is that experience. It's life in a microcosm, and it's just something special for a young man to have to experience.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
Welcome into another edition of NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. I'm your host, Jason Dannelly, and thanks for joining us tonight to talk a little NAIA football. Huge weekend. We had 4 featured games, and to be honest, 3 out of the 4 were excellent. One, maybe not so good. We'll talk about those games and a whole lot more. Plus, we'll talk about some of the top performances of this week and preview the upcoming week of NAIA football. I take this opportunity now, as always, to bring in the co-host of this show, the guy that actually understands football, coached football, won national championships, and unfortunately for him, occasionally hung out with me. So now he gets to do the show with me. Pat Donley. Nice to have you.
What's up, Al? How you doing, man?
I'm awesome. I am awesome.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I think we're kind of figuring out who the teams are that are really, really going to make a push for this thing. It's like that first quarter of the season. Now we're seeing how some things are shaking out and see what these teams are made of.
Yeah, and it's 100%. All right, we've got the shakeout. Now, who can survive like the doldrums of fall? Like, who can you stay injury free? Can you stay relatively healthy? Those are the things that start coming into play now, because there's some fantastic teams right now, but at the NAI level, you're 1 or 2 injuries away from, their things went for us. And
no
there's
question.
A few teams that we'll talk about there where, man, there's some ball players that when they get going, they are pretty good. And we saw that in a couple of our featured games yesterday. But I tell you what, man, this is fun. Like we're getting into the year, we're learning some teams. We've got some undefeated teams right now that if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, going into October, these teams are going to be undefeated, I would say, what are you smoking? Like, that's not possible. They proved me wrong. They proved a lot of people wrong. So we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. How was your weekend, man? Did you have a good one?
Good. Yeah, rocking the kids' hockey team gear. So just got off the road, but got a chance to see these games and watch some last night and watch some today. Of course, was watching the Alabama-Georgia game as well. That was a heck of a game. Tip our cap to our pal, a friend of the show, Kalen DeBoer, and winning that huge rivalry game. And so happy for him. And what a great game that was too.
Yeah, that just sounds so weird. Friend of the show, head coach from Alabama, Kalen DeBoer. I think I told you pre-show, I did send him a text message just to, hey, congrats, man. That's a hell of a win. And I actually got a message back. So it's like, holy cow. Like, I every time he texts me, I want to be like, you don't need to respond to me. Right. Like, I am no one.
Then you want to screenshot that text and show it to people?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to lie to you. I used to coach against that guy. Like, the hockey dads were having a few pints around watching the game. It's like, yeah, I know that guy. Like, no, you don't. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah,
cool.
No, honestly, I do. It's awesome. Hey, let's talk about NAI football. Congrats to Kalen, always making the NAI look good. Some big games this weekend. We get into maybe some of the ones that we didn't have in our featured game schedule. But St. Thomas, Florida Memorial, we knew that would be a rivalry battle. That would be an interesting game down in Miami Gardens, Florida. St. Thomas comes away with a 45-17 victory. They led 31-0 at the half. I watched a video of this game. I did not watch it live. I had some other things going on, but I went back and watched parts of it today. A very weird weather game. Started off cloudy, then they played in a monsoon, and halfway through the third quarter, actually maybe even started the third quarter, bright blue skies, sunny. Like if you go and you look at some of the video of that game, it's incredible. No stats from the game as I was putting things together on this yet, but St. Thomas with the rivalry win there over Florida Memorial. A very interesting game for Georgetown, who got out on Reinhardt early on. Looked like they were going to take care of business here, Pat, but Reinhardt battles back, ties it up 31-31. Georgetown ends out having to kick a game-winning field goal with 2.5 seconds left to win this one. Darius Neal, 184 yards on the ground. Reinhardt quarterback Taylor Jackson, the third, had 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's credited with 2 interceptions. Really, I only think about one, given the circumstances that the other one came in. But Georgetown pulls out the victory, evens up 2-2 here.
Yeah, I watched them this game. This is also a weather game, kind of the aftermath of the hurricane going through, really wet. When you're an air raid team like Georgetown, you hear the weather forecast, you're just like, oh no. Things get real, that play sheet gets real small. What can we get on the perimeter to attack in the passing game that can actually get completed and executed to some level in wind and rain? And we better rely on Darius Neal. I mean, that was the game plan. I give a lot of credit to both teams. That was a really good game. Not real exciting, at least initially. The end was really exciting, Jason. I get to watch this a little bit live. And I got to credit Georgetown, the kind of the resiliency, kind of make plays when they had to, especially the last drive, which led to a field goal to basically put them ahead. And this has got to be a game for them. And like we talked about in the pre-show or our preparation, that another bye week for them, which is really strange.
Yeah.
But this is a win for them, I think, that can really get them rolling, kind of boost them and get some confidence. And it was a character win. It was a challenge, certainly, and they had to have some resolve in the end to get it done. And I think that's something that can really, motivate them and give them some confidence moving forward.
Yeah, and what Pat is referencing is Georgetown had a bye week a week ago. They play this week against Reinhardt. They have another bye week next week, and then they started the season with that early game against Montana Tech. So it feels like Georgetown's season has just been doing this. Like, here we go, stop. Here we go, stop. But big credit also, I think, to Darius Neal. You watched the end of that game. He had some big first down runs to keep drives going, and 184 yards is great, but none of them were bigger than what he got on that last drive to keep it going for Georgetown so that they could get the victory over Reinhardt. We move on in a game that we said, hey, keep your eye on this one. Notably so. Number 9, Dort, they get the win. 33-22, that's a respectable win. I think people that maybe don't follow the GPAC look at that and they say, wow, Dort's 3-0, they're rated high, they'll handle Concordia. Playing at Concordia, going on the road, Concordia's got a really good offense. Dort did a good job holding them down, and quarterback Colton Cruz comes away with 190 yards passing, a touchdown, 76 yards rushing. Nice day for him. Their defense played well. A nice victory for Dort to get on the road as they start rolling further into GPAC play. Any additions on that, Pat, or do we get down to that featured game there?
Well, the featured game I'm excited about, certainly, because I know a little bit more about the teams. But Dort is an exciting team. I'm looking forward to how this conference shakes out. Your home conference, Jason. I am looking forward to how it all shakes out. Because I tell you what, man, we have another contender, which has been a while that we could have set. What was the third team in this? It wasn't Dana College, I can tell you that much.
It was never Dana College.
Third team in the GPAC that was viable and could make be a playoff level team. It's been a long time. And we have one with the Defenders.
Couple years back, Dakota Wesleyan challenged. Mid 2000s, Hastings College was in there. They were getting in.
That's when Northwestern was a little down. I believe,
correct.
So it was like Morningside and of course Sioux Falls back in the days. I guess there was probably a three horse race there at one point, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. It's exciting because Dort plays a different brand of football than Morningside, who plays a different brand of football than Northwestern. So you get to see all these styles mesh together as those teams continue to move down the road in the GPAC and get ready to play one another. All right, Indiana Wesleyan, St. Francis. This was one of our featured games of the week, Pat. Indiana Wesleyan, early on, first quarter, 7-3. I'm watching this game live saying, all right, St. Francis is sticking in there. And then you get to that second quarter, Indiana Wesleyan goes up 14-3. St. Francis gets down to the end zone, gets maybe a chance to score. They don't do it. All right, we're going to kick the field goal. We missed the field goal. We go into the break 14-3. And I think at that moment, all the momentum that St. Francis was starting to get, their ability to stick around in this game, it kind of all went out the window. Indiana Wesleyan makes some halftime adjustments, and that's evident by their huge third quarter. They end up winning this one 38-3. A big W for IWU.
IWU can just find way. It's like they just pour it on. I mean, look what last week looked like. Olivet, I still think Olivet's a quality team in what they did. And look at the third quarter in this game against a top 25 team. And you start looking at some of the breakdown. Obviously, they're scoring points in bunches. But defensively, Jason, my goodness, 24 rushing yards for the Saints. And at 22 carries, this wasn't all just, chuck and duck all day. I mean, they're trying to establish semblance of run game, and there's nothing to be had. And then 2 of 15 on third downs is what Indiana Wesleyan's defense. That's defending well on third. That's situational football. We talk about the Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, keys to victory. I mean, it's situational football. It's red zone. It's third downs. It's defending the run. I mean, those are key things. And the Wildcats do that. Then they can score like you talked about, just in bunches. Like you talk about 24-point quarter. My goodness. And again, it does help defense, short possessions, those 3 and outs and stuff in the run game, stifling the run game, getting the ball back for the high potent offense. There's your result.
If you look at the best teams in NAI football on offense, each one of the aspects, they've got a solid performer in. Indiana Wesleyan, solid quarterback, solid running back, solid wide receiver, or 2 or 3 there. That's what makes some of these really good teams dangerous. And when you start comparing like teams in the top 10, that's why I get, so high on, why Kaiser is where they are, why Northwestern is where they are, why Indiana Wesleyan is where they are. I start looking at some of these other teams and like we got Dort on the screen. I'll pick on them a little bit. I don't look at their passing game and go, oh, wow, that guy you got to watch for. So that's something that Dort needs to be obviously a lot better on offense, in the run game and the things they do there to make up for maybe that lack of a dynamic passing attack. So, but huge, going back to the subject at hand, Indiana Wesleyan, incredible victory. Again, every week I'll say it, I was wrong. My preseason prediction, I did not have them winning the conference. It's absolutely wrong. I don't know what I was thinking. I know what I was thinking. I was looking at numbers and not using my brain. That was my problem, Pat.
They're real good, Jason. But I tell you what, the schedule is going to get really, really challenging here soon for the Wildcats, and a couple in a row here that are going to be, again, a challenge to the point where we think they're a really good football team. Well, they have a chance to prove that.
Yeah, and they could come out of that. We could go, wow, they're a really good football team.
No doubt.
Moving on, we go to Marian, Upland, Indiana last night. The place was on fire as Marian pulls out the overtime victory on the road, 35-34. This was one of those games we said keep your eye on it because we've been watching Taylor this year and saying this is a good team. This is not just Taylor's 4-0 and they beat the absolute worst of the NAIA to get there. No, Taylor's been playing good football. They came out, they proved that early. They got up 14-7 after one tie ball game going into halftime. And then late in the game, it looked like Taylor was going to hold on to this one, but Marian, the Cardiac Kids pull this one out again. Another last second victory. You just wonder how many more weeks is Marian going to be able to keep this up? Can they come out and put it on someone and not put themselves into this situation?
Starting with Marian, you can see the character there. And again, this is all Coach Karras. I'm just going to tell you, I know him personally. Yep. We had him on the show. He is one of those player coaches that you would run through a wall. It's a cliche thing, right? You literally would run through a wall for Coach Karras. He's that type of coach, fiery, passionate, would just get players so motivated. And the thing is, with him, he's never panicked. So in a situation like this, in an overtime game, I can tell you his message and the staff's message is of calm and execution. Hey, this is what we're going to do. And there's a confidence to him. And I think that's really one of the keys to his success. I think the role of the coach. And they've got some things to figure out, though. I mean, the rushing yards they're giving up 2 weeks in a row, that's alarming. I do think their offense is picking it up. I mean, look at LaBelle's production in the run game. There's some things there. They have some weapons as well. But they've got to figure out the run defense. And there's some things that they got to really look at. I don't know if we have it's in like the 300s, wasn't it, Jason? I think they gave up rushing. I mean, this is one of those games there's like almost 600 yards of total rushing yards between the two teams. So this thing was ground and pound and being moved in the run game from both teams. And Taylor has a unique system. Coach Mingo's from Dort, and it's a spread option deal, kind of a pistol triple option game. So it's assignment football, and there's some things that they do, and it's challenging to defend, certainly. But we got to get some things figured out on the defensive side, certainly, if you're Marian. And back to Taylor. Let's talk about Taylor real quick.
Yes.
They're scary, man. And we talked about it. I mean, they've won some big games. Look at this. I mean, you're talking the top team in the MSFA, take them to overtime and lose by a point. I mean, it's real scary. St. Francis Cougars are going down there Saturday, Jason, and it's going to be an interesting one. My plan is to go to that game. It's going to be a dogfight. I mean, this is a good team, well-coached team, high character, high effort all the time. When you're going down to Upland, you're going to get a football game and you're going to get their very best. And that was proven last night.
I think the biggest thing that Taylor has to do is not get low after this victory. Keep doing what they do, and St. Francis next week will give them every bit that they want, but Taylor's got to be ready to give it right back. And huge credit to Aaron Mingo in this game. I like it when coaches do this. We'll talk about a game here, another one of our featured games in a little bit, where Coach Morawski did the same thing at College of Idaho. Go into the overtime. No. Not kicking a field goal. We're not going to go to another. We're going for 2, and we're going to win it right now. They didn't, but I full respect to the coaches that do that and say, all right, you kicked the field goal. Guess what? We're going to put it in our offense's hand. We're going to win this game. And they got held short, but I do like the aggressiveness and the play call by Coach Mingo in this game to try to win it for Taylor in overtime. Would have been huge. They got a lot of season left. This could be a team down the road. If they keep winning, all of a sudden they're popping in the top 25. And you want to talk about teams that I did not consider making the postseason this year. Taylor does have a shot.
Jason, no one did. Trust me. Yeah. There's no one, including people on Upland's campus in Upland, Indiana, that campus. I mean, this is a surprise and good for them. And again, it's a great institution, great folks there, and they need a winner. I mean, they've had it since the 90s, Jason, a consistent winner. And like we've always talked about, Marian's more talented. I'll tell you now, St. Francis is more talented than Taylor is next week. But there's the character, there's the effort, there's the resolve, there is all the things that you have, those intangible things are why they are what they are right now, where they are, and being competitive, winning so many of these games and having a chance last night.
Wasn't it Steve Wilt, 1998 head coach Taylor, last time they were in the playoffs?
Exactly right. Ironically enough, true story. I actually was texting back and forth with Coach Wilt yesterday. So shout out to Coach Wilt. Wonderful guy. True story. Hey, 30-second story.
Yep.
So Coach Wilt's son is at Michigan State as a defensive line coach. He was the Indiana defensive coordinator last year. True story. I'm driving up to Michigan for my son's hockey game. I see Chad Wilt, Coach Wilt, Steve Wilt's son, who's All-American at Taylor. I saw his wife and kids randomly at a gas station. And I go, hey, I'm Pat Donley. Used to coach with your father-in-law at St. Francis. It was a crazy story. It was so weird. But anyway, 30 seconds. Small world.
And I remember I could tell the story too sometime about how Steve Wilt talked about that postseason team with me one time back in 1998. Well, he didn't talk to me about 9, but kind of like how they got there, because Taylor's never been a team or a university that gave out a lot of football scholarships. But like his son was on the team who was a heck of a ball player. There was another coach's son on the team who was a heck of a ball player. So they kind of got two or three free scholarships from some of their best players, and that allowed them to kind of get the people around them to have a little bit better squad there. But we digress. We could talk about this. We're talking about this week, and we're talking about this game. Kansas Wesleyan gets the victory over Bethel. Bethel was undefeated going into this week. Kansas Wesleyan gets them at home, kind of steers their ship back on track. Get 129 yards out of their quarterback, Richard Lara, to get this victory, 21-6 over Bethel. So Kansas Wesleyan, again, in the KCAC, they have only played crossover games. They've played no in-division games yet. And all you got to start doing now, if you're in one of these divisions in the KCAC, is start playing your best football now. And that's why we had this as a game to keep your eye on. It's Kansas Wesleyan going to right the ship and all of a sudden start playing better football the second half of the year. Well, first step has happened in this ball game here.
Well, K-Dub's just kind of all over the place, aren't they, Jason? Just kind of, we think they're a good football team. We previewed them as a contender in this league and dropped a couple of games, and they come back and be an undefeated Bethel team. I guess, what is this Kansas Wesleyan team really? Who are they? They do some great things, certainly, but is it consistent enough? Is it a week by week thing? We're still trying to figure them out a little bit.
By the way, the Raiders just won, so
hey,
makes me about that.
Until they beat the Browns, I'm happy.
Yeah, they got a W. But no, I'm with you. K-Dub, their identity, I think they're seeking it. I think they're slowly starting to find it. and it'll be an interesting second half of the KCAC. All right, we get into the featured games. We had a great one in Atchison, Kansas. Number 13, Benedictine, comes away with a 27-24 victory over Baker. Exciting football game. And the Ravens defense, played very well in this game. You watched it. You mentioned it. They had the quarterbacks for Baker, Truman Julesgaard and Sam Hageman, running for their lives in this game. A lot of pressure from the Ravens defense in this one.
A lot of pressure. And I'm really very impressed with the mobility of the quarterbacks against a spread system with Baker. So they've got receivers in the perimeter, on the perimeter. A lot of there's not a whole lot of protection help for those guys. So I thought Benedictine pinned their ears back and got after the quarterbacks pretty well. But the mobility of those quarterbacks allowed them to make plays. And this is an exciting game. Great passing game day for those like the ball in the air like me. I love watching it. I thought it was impressive. Big fan of Dooley from Benedictine. Real big fan of him. Kind of a savvy guy. Just does the right things. You can tell he understands their system really well and distributes the ball properly. They're a good football team. Talking about Benedictine, I'm a big fan. Both teams are good football teams. I'm really anxious to see kind of how things shake out in this league for them. Both of these teams, I think they're playoff level teams. Just watching them, I think Baker's got some protection things they got to work on if they want to really run that system the way they'd like to. A little bit more time, a little bit more protection for those quarterbacks, but at the same time, they've got some weapons. They've got a great scheme, and they're exciting. In Benedictine, I feel the same way about. A little bit more balance on their part, I think, with the run game. But good football team, good strong defense. They run the football well, tough. This was a really good game, Jason.
It really was. And I think Dalton Witherspoon down the stretch had some really big runs to get some first downs to kind of keep the ball in Benedictine's hand late in the game. And the big difference in this, we talk about all the offense. The biggest difference, I think, in this game came down to one play, and that was an interception by Isaiah Haston. He housed it from 61 yards out right before halftime. That's the difference in this game. If Benedictine doesn't get that defensive score, we're talking about Baker winning this game this week. Instead, it's flip-flop. Defense kind of prevails for Benedictine there. Anytime in a big game that you can get a score from your defense to help you out, it is absolutely huge, especially in a rivalry game like this. Man, I retweeted Coach Osborne's pictures that he had from somebody gave him, and he just had pictures of their stadium. What an atmosphere. Tremendous atmosphere in Atchison for this packed house, overflow seating. I mean, just you look at it, and a guy like me, I just salivate. I'm like, this is NAIA football. I love it.
It looked cool, the live stream. I love how the campus is the backdrop of the one end zone. I think it's just so cool, the buildings, and that's a neat place. And I was going to tell you that pick six, Jason, that was one of the best returns too. It's just unbelievable. I mean, people had angles on him, and he made that thing happen. Like you said, that was the play of the game. I totally agree. That was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely a huge win for Benedictine. Now, two very close. Here's my thing, and I'll talk to you about this briefly, Pat. You've never been a Raider on the NAIA side. I'm assuming your dad has.
That has been. Yep.
Yeah. So this is the thing that kills me. So Baker goes on the road to Benedictine. They're separated by 3 spots in the ratings. You already have said that Benedictine is better than Baker based on your ratings. They go up there, they play a tight game like this, they lose by 3. It's the expected outcome, but they'll drop Baker. And I don't get that. My thought is like, yeah, maybe you drop Baker 1 or 2 because you saw something in this game that made you go, maybe they're not as good as we thought. But I'll just be frustrated if I look at the coaches poll on Monday and they drop them like 5 spots for this loss. It's what the expected outcome was already based on your ratings. But I digress. Yeah. I'm sorry. We'll move on to the next game. Montana Tech, College of Idaho. This one. I watched this one, Pat. What a ball game. I mean, College of Idaho, it looked like they didn't have their mojo, and then they got their mojo back, and then they lost it again for a second, and then they got it back. The Yotes played a tremendous game, really on the arm and legs of Andy Peters in this game. He was making plays happen. 419 yards passing for Peters, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 90 yards on the ground. He was slinging it to a couple different wide receivers. But I tell you what, Montana Tech was doing everything in their power having some huge plays. Wyatt Alexander had a couple giant catches for them. He ended up with 219 yards in this game and a touchdown. I mean, he had a couple like 50, 60. I think he had an 80-yarder in this game. I mean, there were huge plays on both sides of the ball. And given any drive, you'd be watching this game going, oh, wow, Montana Tech, they are so much better than College of Idaho. And then College of Idaho gets the ball. You go, oh, wow, Montana Tech, they can't handle College of Idaho. College of Idaho, like this was just one of those classic NAIA games. Goes into overtime. COI gets the victory. The statistic I don't have up there, 5 missed extra points by College of Idaho in this game. So they could have won it in regulation by making 1 PAT. They didn't make any. And that's the situation that we're in. They went to overtime and ended up getting the victory. But huge game for the Yotes to get themselves back on track in this one.
Yeah, it's great to see. And we talk about all the time, and I'm probably the guy, the biggest towel waver for Andy Peters. I think the world of him. I think he's arguably the best player in the NAIA. And I will say this, I think if he's not the best player, Jason, he might be the most valuable to his team. Yes, in that, I mean, that guy does everything for that Coyotes team. And if he's going, they got a shot. And look at the difference of a productive, passing game day for him. And the balance is essential for his game. That's just the way it is. As an offensive guy, it would freak me out running him the way they do because he's so valuable. But that's part of who he is. He's a physical player. I think he enjoys it. You kind of see him when he takes a hit, it kind of gets him into the game. He wants to be able to run the football and design run game with quarterback. But he is the most valuable player to his team, I think, in the NAIA. I can say that with great certainty. And it's good to see them back. It was a weird stretch for them, dropping a couple of games. They played no one early, dropped a couple of games against some good teams. Now beating, in my opinion, a very good Montana Tech team. I think this is a huge win for College of Idaho to get them back on track. And here we go again, Jason. We're talking about the Frontier again, the parity. How great is that? I mean, this conference, I tell you what, they have this, what is it, the Hard Knocks they're going to do in the AFC North, I think.
Yeah.
Would you love to have like a behind the scenes of this league? Wouldn't that be cool? For guys like us, we'd love it. I think we could be a couple of hosts and be behind the scenes and move up to Montana and Idaho and Oregon and check these places out. But there's some cool stuff going on, man. This league is just fascinating. And every week there's a matchup. And really there's been an upset every week because these teams are so close. There's so much parity, like we've talked about from day one. And there's another example of it. It's just awesome.
Well, and even in this league, a game that I don't have featured, it's not up here, but, Eastern Oregon plays Rocky Mountain. I think everybody's thinking Rocky Mountain is going to win this game. Eastern Oregon ends out 23-20 beating them. So there's just a ton of parity in this league. And so now College of Idaho's got the 2 losses. Montana Tech's got 1 loss. We go to our next game. Southern Oregon's undefeated. So, but we'll get into it, but it's like, guess what, Southern Oregon? You get Montana Tech next now. So
yeah.
This was a crazy game as well. Southern Oregon looked really good in this ball game. Maybe did not perform in the fourth quarter quite at the way that they wanted to, but they came out in the third quarter, made a statement, got up on Montana Western 28-10. Western made a little bit of a comeback at the end and had a shot again at another onside kick, and they couldn't get their second onside kick recovered. They recovered the first one to get the late score, and then Southern Oregon was able to just run the clock out of this one. But again, Gunnar Yates, 154 yards on 31 carries. He had 31 carries last week for nearly 300 yards. Cut the production in half this week, but still 2 touchdowns. Blake Asciutto, 180 yards through the air, a couple touchdowns. The key, I think, and this is why I loved this ball game, Pat. There was a couple fumbles, but not lost fumbles, and there was no turnovers in this game. Palandri, no interceptions. Asciutto, no interceptions. No lost fumbles. A very cleanly played football game in that regard.
Well, I can tell you Southern Oregon's a real deal. And I think when we had a coach on was it springtime? I think it was right about like spring game time.
Well, it was right before their spring game that was happening like in May. So it was like late April we had him, yeah.
Sure. And boy, we like this guy. I mean, there's some passion there. We talked a little bit about it last week. And this is a team we've not talked a lot about until this upcoming week, last week, going in this game. And you watch them now, 2 weeks in a row, they can play. I mean, they are good. They are good on defense. They tackle well. They defend the pass well. I think their blitz schemes, it gives me nightmares because I remember those schemes when Coach Sten was at Marian. I see it all. I'm like, oh, this is. I remember all this stuff. We did this against that. I'm like, oh, we had to call this one out. Yeah. Anyway, so I had some nightmares watching it. But they're good. And I tell you what, the balance offensively, I think the world of Yates. There's some really good backs in this affiliation, Jason, this year. It's the throwback, and you're a Nebraska guy. We've talked about it before. These guys are like the physical. I bet Smith at Montana Tech. We talk about Northwestern's running back
McQuillan, Connor McQuillan.
Love him. The running backs, the two-headed monsters down in Kaiser. There's so many of the old school throwback physical run behind their pads, do everything well. Catch the ball, block, the pass protection, run the football hard between the tackles, always falling forward for yards. Backs in this affiliation, it's fun to watch. Yates is a player, man. I think Yates is fantastic. 2 weeks in a row now, just having a huge game and just keeping the sticks moving. You're just guaranteed to get plus yardage. You're handing the football. It's going to be physical. That defense is going to bring 11 hats to bring that guy down because he's dynamic. He's a really good player.
He is a fantastic ball player. His dad, the old-time leading rusher for Southern Oregon. And Southern Oregon's had some pretty good running backs come through there. Dusty McGroarty is another one I always think of. He was a heck of a running back. I mean, there was some really good ball players at Southern Oregon. Nice to see them back on track in the top 25. They're going to make a pretty good leap in the Victory Sports Network poll tomorrow. That's me, previewing and telling people to make sure they go to the website tomorrow to check out my top 25 as it comes out. They'll make a pretty good jump. Montana Western, I've got to move down a little bit. And it's no disrespect to Montana Western. They went on the road. They nearly beat Southern Oregon on the road. But as I look at Montana Western, and we talked about it earlier on the show, Pat, the three phases on offense: great passing, great receiving. Maybe they lack a little bit in the ability to run the football when they absolutely need to in big situations. And I think they'll get that straightened out. I think Jake Humphrey's a good running back. I think Palandry, when he's got to scramble and he's got to run, he is a great running back. But they've got a little work to do. Plenty of season left. Let's not go jumping off any bridges in Montana or falling down any mountains or doing anything like that. There is a ton of season left for all these things to sort out. And it just so happens right now, Southern Oregon kind of sits at the top of the Frontier Conference by themselves because they're undefeated. But it's a long season, Pat. And
no doubt.
If anybody was going to run the table this year, I was going to say, wow, that's going to be amazing if you do that in the Frontier. Now it's kind of Southern Oregon, the opportunity to do that. And that's going to be pretty amazing if they can get through College of Idaho again, Montana Tech this next week. They haven't played Carroll College yet. There's just a ton of good football teams in this league. Plus, then you got the injury bug. We always talk about that. You're maybe one injury away from having your season turn upside down a little bit. Knock on wood. We don't want that to happen to anybody, but that's just the depth at the NAIA level. You don't have the next 5-star, waiting in the wings at the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive end position. So it's been crazy, and this is huge for Southern Oregon to get this win, and I really liked the way they played yesterday, Pat. It was a good one.
I totally agree. I think you made a great point too about developing more of a run game for Montana Western. I say it for this reason. One, I think run game prowess and the ability to do so is everything in the game of football. It really is. It starts there. It has to, right? You have to have that balance. As good as Palandry in that receiving core is, and I think the world of them, they're fun to watch. That's my kind of football. If it was up to me, I'd throw it every down. I was that guy. I love it. But you have to have the balance. You do. And especially that part of the world. I talked about it last week. The Montana Western reminds me of like a Southeastern region team in the way they approach offensive football. So I think them finding a balance here these next few weeks is going to be a key thing if they want to have a deep season. It's going to get nasty in late October and November in that part of the world. And they've got to be able to have that balance. Excuse me. But at the same time, if you tell me Montana Western wins out, I'm not shocked at all.
Yeah,
I think they're tremendous. I think that, again, Palandry's a great player, and he is the man for that program, and he does things very, very well. At the same time, like there's some things to work on and balance out, certainly. And Southern Oregon, is it possible to go beat College of Idaho, beat Montana Western, and then Montana Tech in a row? That is quite a run if they can do it. It's going to be tough, Jason. That's a gauntlet, no doubt.
Yes, it is. We get some comments coming from the web here. Great win for COI. SOU better pack a lunch. Butte is the toughest place to play in the Frontier. That is no lie. And again, we just think about the 4 teams we talked about here in the last 2 slides. Montana Tech, College of Idaho, Montana Western, Southern Oregon. If whoever wins, if somebody could win out from those teams, dangerous. Like, I would not want to face them in the playoffs.
Nightmare.
The problem is, like, they're just going to beat one another up, I think.
Right.
Southern Oregon with a little bit of an upper hand right now because they're the only one that hasn't lost. But as we get into next week's games, we'll talk a little bit more about that one. So a quick rundown of the top 25 here. Kaiser did not play this week. Northwestern at halftime only up 10-7 on Doane. Ended up pulling out a 31-7 victory. Looked fine in this game. Maybe not the performance that they were hoping for. They get Concordia next week. Culver Stockton, no match for number 3 Grandview. We just talked about Montana Western, Southern Oregon. Then Bethel gets that win against Bluefield. A nice win for Bethel, a team that I'm still questioning how good they are. I need to see them against better competition.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that score. I thought they'd be a little tighter. We kind of talked about keep your eye on that game. And, that's some points by Bethel, Jason. And I'm with you. I want to see kind of how things progress with some stiffer competition, but that's a good day at the office.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention obviously the weather, what some teams had to deal with. Lindsey Wilson and St. Andrews, their game was canceled this weekend because of the weather. Trying to get North Carolina into Tennessee and Kentucky and all this, just trying to travel that area is a nightmare for some. So obviously our thoughts, and our, everything going out to everybody in that region. Montreat, which is an NAIA school. They don't play football, but I've been there. I've been on their campus. Beautiful football stadium, by the way. They are actually canceling classes through October 6th because of everything. They're right there, like that Asheville area.
Yeah.
They don't have power on campus, but they are going to have like food and water for the student athletes and all the students that go to Montreat. And they've basically said, like, yes, we know you want to leave, but you can't leave. It's emergency services only. We're going to take care of you as best as we can here. Just crazy situation for those college students and everybody in that part of the world to be in, Pat.
Yeah, I feel terrible for them. It's a beautiful part of the world. Appalachia is just gorgeous. And, with the elevation, all that 20 inches of rain is obviously very, very significant. And, it's sad. Got some family that have lived there over the years. That's a beautiful part of the world.
Moving on to the second half of the top 10, Indiana Wesleyan gets that W. Marian gets the W. We talked about St. Thomas and Dordt and Montana Tech already in this this show, so we'll move on to the 11 through 15 spots. St. Xavier, respectable win over Concordia, 27-17. Morningside puts one on Mount Marty. Zach Cefalier with like 363 yards passing in that ball game. And then the other games we talked about, St. Xavier with the nice win. They go to Indiana Wesleyan this week, and that is definitely going to be one of our featured games, Pat.
No question. That's going to be very interesting. St. X has had a good run of things, dropped a game to St. Thomas, but this one coming up is going to be a big one down in Marion, Indiana.
16 through 20, Evangel got the win over Ottawa, 27-14, and Mid-American Nazarene blanked St. Ambrose for spots 16 through 20, spots 21 through 25. Friends gets a relatively easy victory over Tabor, blanking them 24-0. Dickinson State beats Jamestown. Lindsey Wilson, their game was canceled, and Southwestern beats Sterling 42-7. That kind of rounds out our talk on the top 25. Pat, not a lot of surprises. We had, teams in the top 25 playing one another, but really nobody from outside the top 25 coming in and beating somebody in the top 25 this week to really cause any sort of ruckus in the ratings.
Just a close one with Taylor and Marian. That was a close one.
But look who's still undefeated. Campbellsville and Cumberland. When I opened the show, I said there's a couple teams that if you would have told me this time of the year they'd still be undefeated, I'd ask what you're smoking. Well, the top 3 there, all fall into that. I would not have said Campbellsville would be undefeated. I would not have said Cumberland. I would not have said Dakota State. Like if somebody would have been telling me Dakota State's going to be undefeated, Jason, keep your eye out for them, I'd be sitting there going, what are you talking about? Like that, like get out of here. Dakota State, Josh Anderson, what a tremendous job so far this year. They've got a big one coming up this week. And I was just looking at some of the comments here. Yeah. We got Henry checking in with a few comments about Southern Oregon. Very pretty stadium. I would agree with that as well. We've seen pictures of it. Some of the Southern Oregon boosters, they should work on getting Dannelly and Donley do a live show out there.
Absolutely, need to fire the PJ up, the old private jet, the old Dannelly and Donley PJ. Let's go.
Yeah, just start in Fort Wayne. It stops in Fargo. We continue our way to Ashland, and then on the way back, just single couple stops on the way.
I would absolutely love that, by the way. Yeah, that part of the world is just beautiful. Love it.
It would be awesome. All right, so the featured games this week, Pat, we kind of previewed this one a couple weeks ago. Kaiser and St. Thomas. That is going to be a battle in Miami Gardens, Florida. Number 1 Kaiser going on the road to take on St. Thomas. St. Thomas has played some really good football. Key victory over St. Xavier on the road in Chicago. What a matchup between the Seahawks and the Bobcats for the Sun Conference.
I love these two teams. I think they're two of the very best. I think St. Thomas, arguably, I mean, again, they haven't proven themselves completely yet, but I think they're maybe even higher than the top 8. I think this is a battle. This is a dogfight. I'm anxious to see how St. Thomas, obviously challenges. Does Kaiser, has that background, has that pedigree, has that, understanding of what big games are all about, finding ways to win. I think this is going to come down to the wire. I think this is a coin flip either way, watching both teams this year. I think the world of St. Thomas. I think they're a good team. And this is going to be a challenge. Though Kaiser's played some Division IIs. I would guess that this St. Thomas team is going to be every bit of that, if not better, than those Division II teams. I think they're awesome.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, we talked about the 3 phases of the offense. Great running back, great wide receivers, great quarterback. So Kaiser cannot just focus, maybe as they had done in years past, hey, we're going to shut down this run, and St. Thomas isn't going to be able to do anything against us. And then on the other side of the ball, St. Thomas's defense is tremendous. They ran some schemes against St. Xavier that really slowed them down, caused them not to sling the ball as well as they wanted to, I'm sure. Because of the proximity, they know Kaiser pretty well, and they'll have a good game plan. Now, Kaiser, too, on the other side, this is the defending national champion. This is a team that has got some tremendously good football players on the defensive side of the ball. Like, I'm with you, Pat. I absolutely love this football game. It's one that I wish teams like this could play each and every week. Unfortunately, they just beat one another up and probably not be able to make the postseason then. But I look forward to this one. I've been looking forward to it since last year. Kaiser and St. Thomas in that game, if I remember right, there was a lightning delay. So these two teams kind of went at it. I think Kaiser got up 20-0 or 17-0 early. Then they had like a couple hour lightning delay and they came back, and it's not a true game. So I'm fingers crossed, hoping for good weather come Saturday and that we can just see these two teams play to the best of their ability so we can really find out who's going to be the best down there. And I'm like you, coin flip. My gut goes Kaiser just because of the big games they played this year against Division II teams. But like, you're just sitting there going, man, St. Thomas could do it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, wow, how'd they do it? It's like, yep, we saw this coming. So it's going to be a good one come Saturday. Our next featured game, St. Xavier going to Indiana Wesleyan. Could potentially be a top 10 battle by the time the new ratings come out. But St. Xavier going on the road to Indiana Wesleyan, tough place to play. Indiana Wesleyan, probably going to have a huge crowd there, have everybody fired up. I'm looking forward to watching that one because it's going to be a good game. And also, well, be frankly honest, it's at Indiana Wesleyan, so it's going to be a really well put together broadcast. I love watching their games, man.
I guess he might be on ESPN3.
Possibly.
Yeah, they have a deal with them. There's not a better place to see a game, watch a game, or live stream, or watch on. I guess it's still streaming on ESPN3. Tough place to play. There is no doubt. I mean that's an environment certainly. So yeah, St. X is gonna have a challenge, and I think Indiana Wesleyan from a defensive standpoint matches up well. I think the key thing is how St. X defends the run and the balance overall of Indiana Wesleyan's offense. So I like that matchup. Everyone would pay close attention to that. is St. X working on trying to get more balance in their offense? They're an air raid team. They want to throw the football. Coach Newell loves throwing. He's like me. I love it. But you got to have some balance. You just do, because the St. Thomas game, they exploited just that one-dimensional side. They did. They played very passive, kept things in front of them, and let their great defensive ends pass rush. Well, Indiana Wesleyan can do the same thing if they want to. So I'm anxious to see that whole plan and how that all shakes out. That's going to be a good game, I think. But it's going to be a tough challenge going into to Marian, Indiana. But it's Marian, Indiana. People, it's confusing, right? There's Marian University. This is Marian. ION, Indiana, where Indiana Wesleyan is. So
yeah, don't worry. That completely screwed me up early on too. It's like, wait, no. So Marian is in Indianapolis, but then Indiana Wesleyan is in Marian.
And Marion County is the county Indianapolis is in. ION. Real confusing. Oh, yeah. Luckily, I'm living in Indiana for the last 25 years, and I can figure it out.
You can explain it to a rube like me. Hey, I look at this game, and if Indiana Wesleyan does what they've continued to do on offense week over week, and St. Xavier can't slow that down, it's going to be a long game for the Cougars. I'm just going to be completely honest. Like, Indiana Wesleyan, they've got me drinking the Kool-Aid on what they're doing now. But if X's defense can slow them down, and they have figured out, some things that they can do on offense to not have a situation like they had against St. Thomas where they just really couldn't get anything going. They couldn't get any real rhythm. Then we're going to have a ball game. But it's going to start with St. Xavier's defense in this game, Pat. They've got to be able to show that they can get it done.
Totally agree.
Southern Oregon, Montana Tech. Another one in the Frontier Conference, as we have seen in the chat. Going to Butte, back lunch. Hey, coming to Butte, toughest place to play. I love it. I love the passion of the Frontier fans, and I love, man. I was in Butte this summer. Like, it's just you walk into that town and you're like, oh, I get it now. Like, I get why come to Butte, mess with us in Butte, man. I dare you. Like,
I love you said pack a lunch going to Butte, one of the classic greenisms. You know where I'm going with this one?
Yes.
It's like, I like that Butte water. You can eat and drink at the same time.
I love it.
It's awesome.
I love it. But yeah, so Southern Oregon, what we've seen from them on offense and defense, they look like a really complete team. Montana Tech, when they are playing their best football, they are very much the same. They've got the three aspects on offense. They've got a hard-nosed defense. This game's really going to come down to, Pat, like, can Southern Oregon slow up Montana Tech? Can they prevent a guy like Wild Alexander from getting, that 60 and 70-yard hit that keeps Montana Tech in some of these games and kind of helps to, expand that offense a little bit? If Southern Oregon's defense can do that, they're going to have an opportunity to come out of Butte with the victory. But if Montana Tech can hit those big plays and be playing at home, we're going to have a barn burner, and we could be talking about a bunch of one-loss teams now in the Frontier Conference.
I think our person that wrote the message is right. I think Montana Tech at home is at a different level too. I really do.
Yes.
Georgetown's a good team, and I tell you, that was a great football game. But Montana Tech, I thought the fan base, the environment, I think that team plays off that energy too. You can kind of see that, you feel it there. Watching them play in Butte. And I'm with you. I think this is an absolute dogfight once again. Here we go again, talking about the Frontier Conference and dogfight game. But man, I mean, how could it not be? I just, going into Butte in Southern Oregon 3 weeks in a row playing these type of opponents, it's got to wear on you a little bit. I mean, it just has to, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's been a physical 3 weeks. And I'm a huge fan of the Raiders. I really am. But that's a tough challenge, and I'm looking forward to this because of those factors, especially.
Yeah, I still don't know where I'm going to pick this game. The home game for Montana Tech really gets me going that direction. The other thing, too, not only is it a home game for Montana Tech, but it is the first road game of the year for Southern Oregon. So Southern Oregon hasn't packed up all their stuff a couple days early, had to do all the transportation stuff. They got to go to Butte, which is not an easy place to get to. Well, trying to get anywhere from Ashland in general is
no
tough.
doubt.
So, but those guys are used to it. I mean, they're doing that every year. But kind of the first one of the year, they got to make sure that they come into the game focused. Otherwise, Tech's going to punch them in the mouth, and we're going to be talking, like I said, about a lot of parity in the Frontier Conference. The other featured game, the matchup of the two undefeated teams
The two undefeateds. I can't
that
wait.
have not had no idea these teams would be undefeated this time of year. And somebody is going to continue to be undefeated after this one. Cumberland at Campbellsville. Man, I hats off to these programs, these teams, what they've done. I always love it when especially teams like Cumberland and Campbellsville, they've got such a rich history in the NAIA. They kind of linger and occasionally hit that postseason year. I love seeing these teams get the opportunity to challenge for conference titles and potentially make the postseason. They're both sitting in a great spot right now, being undefeated going into this week.
Of all the games that I'd like to visit and watch this week, I could actually get to this one actually if I had to. It's not that far of a trip for me. But what cool environment that'll be in Campbellsville, Kentucky on Saturday with these two teams. And like we said, I don't think anyone had predicted this. I mean, maybe within the programs. Hey guys, we have a great schedule. We're going to be in these football games. We have a chance to win these. I'm sure those coaches are saying, those things to their players, but here they are in week 5, 2 undefeated teams. How cool is that? And like you said, I'm on board with you. I mean, teams that have been around for a while. I think Campbell's been around since the late 80s, and I think they had a team before that went away. I think 89 they came back, something like that. They've been around a while, and they've always scored points, which I like. And it's a great place, and I think these two schools going out and being undefeated, that's got to be an electric atmosphere on Saturday in Campbellsville, Kentucky.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to what Gillis Kid can do for Campbellsville, and what Cumberland's going to be able to do on the road, and really a nice challenge. I think Cumberland, honestly, well, I don't know. I think Cumberland might have a slight upper hand only because they've played Florida Memorial. But then I think back, Campbellsville pulled off that week 1 victory against Pikeville, who's a really good team. The record doesn't reflect it, but they're a tough football team. So I'll have the complete Around the Nation article later on this week. I'll preview these games and a whole lot more, and of course give you my picks at some point tomorrow. Chip's picks on the Victory Sports Network. Couple other games just to keep your eye on. Cumberland's is at Bethel, Valley City State at Dickinson, St. Francis, Indiana at Taylor, Reinhardt and Pikeville go up against one another for one of the first conference battles in the Appalachian Athletic Conference. You got Mayville State at Dakota State. Mayville State has won a couple ball games in a row now. They're going to challenge on the road Dakota State. We got Missouri Valley at Baker, which is about as blue blood of a game as it could possibly be in NAIA football. Pat, your thoughts on these games? Any quick ones for you?
No, they're all going to be good. Really, really good. Excited to see them. I'm going to be at the St. Francis Taylor game. I can tell you that's going to be a dogfight. I wonder if Taylor can rebound, like you said. Not to let a game like the overtime loss to Marian kind of linger. And St. Francis is scoring points. They found themselves a quarterback. The old Cougars are back throwing the football and doing some things offensively. So it's going to be an interesting game. I'm looking forward to that. All these games are interesting without any question. Reinhardt, I think, is a good football team. How are they going to respond after a loss? Pikeville, we've watched them, Jason. They're a good football team. They still haven't won any games. Have they won one?
I don't know if they've won one. I think they're still over. Yeah.
And they're good, man. They're not a bad football team. They're losing to quality opponents in tight games. And, that's going to be, like you said, I completely agree to put on the list to keep your eye on is that game as well.
I think the Valley City State Dickinson game, Pikeville 0-4. I just had to double check there.
Man, crazy.
Crazy. They're a good football team.
Good.
Valley City State goes to Dickinson. That's typically the two best teams in the North Star Athletic Association. Dickinson right now undefeated. They kind of look like they're probably a head above everybody else, and I'll be able to predict that more after this game against Valley City State. Valley City just lost to Mayville. Mayville has been coming around, but then you got Dakota State still undefeated. So that's why I've got these games on here, kind of see how does Mayville do against Dakota State? Do they challenge Dakota State? If so, then maybe that Dickinson game is a little more meaningful when Dickinson and Dakota State play in a couple weeks. I'm with you on Reinhardt and Pikeville. The Appalachian Athletic Conference is wide open. All you have to do to make the playoffs, if you're in that league, is win that league. And even though Pikeville has not won a game, I don't believe they've lost a game in the Appalachian Athletic Conference. So if they just win from here on out, which is what they did last year, they came on strong late and nearly made the postseason. And this is a big one for Pikeville to get. This is a big one for Reinhardt to get because it kind of eliminates that other team from potentially having a tie at the top of the Appalachian Athletic Conference. And I like that Cumberland's Bethel game. I think that's really one of the first times I think Bethel's going to be challenged this year. I want to see what Shannon Housekeeper and his crew from the Cumberlands can do against Bethel, who is a top 5 team right now. And Cumberland's has given them some battles over the years. It will be interesting to see how the Patriots do going on the road to take on the Wildcats in that one.
Yeah. And you go back to I like the Reinhardt Pikeville, what you talked about. 2 weeks in a row now, a long trip for Reinhardt too. That's tough. You lose an emotional win that you think you're in. You have a shot to win against Georgetown. You got to get back in the car and back on the bus to go back to Kentucky a second week. There's some. I love your selections here for keep your eye on games for sure.
Yeah, there's it's a lot easier this time of year because we get a little bit of a resume to build off of teams like 3-0, 4-1, 3-2. Hey, we got a conference matchup here, so a lot of good football being played in the world of NAIA football. With that said, Pat, you have anything that we missed out on in the world of NAIA football that we should talk about before we go into our favorite segment? Man, we even got a little bit of time for it today.
A little bit, yeah. I will tell you this. This is just my thought. I've been around the NAIA a long time, and so have you. I've watched it even as a little kid back in the 80s and early 90s. It seems like I've followed this stuff. I mean, I really have not. I mean, you're the king. But I'm amazed of the big matchups that we have every single week. Like, I can tell you right now, Jason, if we were doing this podcast in the mid 2000s, we'd be like, it'd be pulling teeth sometimes.
Yeah.
Because, Sioux Falls beat somebody by 70. Oh, yeah. Big deal. Carroll College, they won again. Yeah, big. Literally, now these conferences, there's so much parity. And we talk about the Frontier, certainly. But look at the mid-states. You're seeing that now. We talk about the Appalachian now, starting in their conference play, how that's going to look out, the Mid-South. All the Heart of America. It's at the Heart. Sorry, Heart.
The Heart.
The Heart. There's so much going on in every one of these games. There you go. Yeah.
I don't know.
I know my daughter's a Swiftie, so I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we do the Heart in the middle here? I'm kidding. Sorry.
I love you, but no. I mean, there's just big games every week. Like, I'm thinking back in our history.
Yes.
We're the same age. Like, I'm not sure we could have had matchups like this. I mean, again, there's some teams. Look at the teams that are undefeated that we weren't expecting to be. Teams making a push, like the Taylor universities of the world. The Dakota States. This is cool, man. Campbellsville and Cumberland. It's a lot of great stories this year. For guys like us doing this podcast, we've got some interesting things to talk about every week. And you got to be interesting, right? Us talking about blowouts every week, that's not any fun. Now, you can get a whole lot of our personality and, us telling jokes and stories. But, talking about these games, there's a lot of good ones to talk about.
I think a lot of credit needs to go to the NAIA football coaches and the conference commissioners in their push to expand the playoffs to 20, not because I thought we needed to have 20 teams in the postseason, but what it has done, the caveat that has gone with that, is now every conference title matters. And there was a time in the Dakota Athletic Conference and in the Mid-South Conference where those teams struggled, and if you were below the top 20, even if you won your conference, you were not going to make the postseason. Now, I love it because all this stuff that's happened in the Appalachian Athletic Conference, to have some teams at 500 right now, not really having anybody in the top 25, while that doesn't look good for the ratings and doesn't look good, from, that far view of what we're talking about, what it does allow us to do is say, hey, that conference still matters because they still have to put a representative in the playoffs. What are they going to do? Same with the North Star, same with the Appalachian, all the conference races now matter because that's where you're getting your automatic from. And then you're going to get all your at-larges after that. So a lot of credit to actually being able to have something to talk about, unlike some of those times in the mid 2000s, like you talked about, Pat. A lot of credit goes to those guys for making that happen. Cause I'm with you, man. I was trying to do this in 2004 through 2009, and you just you dial it up at the beginning of the year and you go, all right, we got Sioux Falls, we got St. Francis, we got Carroll, and then we got a bunch of teams that ain't got a chance. All right,
no question.
So how do I make this interesting from week to week? And that's no discredit to those teams, but there was a couple years there, and then Lindenwood kind of came in. Morningside had so you had 4 teams in all of a sudden. Now, we're talking there's 4 teams in the Frontier Conference that I look at and go, if they get the right situation, they are capable of winning a national title. There's 2 or 3 teams in the GPAC I look at the same. There's 2 teams in the Sun Conference I look at. There's a bunch of teams in the Mid-States. There's a couple in the HAC. In the KCAC gets into the mix here occasionally. So it's just exciting to finally talk about, and that's what makes me so happy to be back doing this. I'll be honest. That's why some of the reason why I stayed away from doing this over a 10-year period and still followed it but didn't speak publicly about it was because at times it's just like, man, it's kind of the same year over year, and now there's this new excitement around it, so I love it.
Totally agree. I mean, that's exactly right. The dynasties were fun of the DeBoer and the Carroll College groups. Yep. These guys are awesome. The Van Diest and Kalen DeBoer years were fantastic. At the same time, I'm not sure the product of the NAIA was maybe the best it's ever been. Where I think now we're seeing meaningful games in all the conferences weekly.
Yep. And I think the other thing that has happened, we'll go ahead and say this. That's going to do it for the actual NAIA talk. If you want us to break down more teams and do all that, we're kind of out of that. We're going to wrap up the show here momentarily. So thanks for following us for all this fine NAIA information. But I'll go back now, Pat, to kind of as we talk into the overtime portion of the show here. So I think the other thing that has happened is also indicative of what's happening in small colleges, liberal arts institutions, and college in general, is now if you are a small college and you want me to come to that college, I need to have a draw to go there. Okay, it's sports. Oh, I get to play sports. Well, kids are smart enough these days to go, well, yeah, I've got, I'll use Dana College because they don't exist anymore, and I could talk trash about them because I'm an alum. But if Dana College existed today, and it's like, hey, we're going to have you come to Dana. Well, let me get this straight. Your facilities are horrible. You're a bad football team. What's my benefit to go there other than to just be a number on your team? And so many teams have now so many schools have now figured out, like, we can't just say, hey, you got a chance to play football and expect these kids to want to come here and stick around. We've got to give them the other things that go with that. A good education. We've got to give them a good football experience. They need the bells and whistles to keep them here. Otherwise, they're just going to go to State University U and get their education and not get it from our institution. And I think that's one thing that has also helped raise the NAIA level, because for years there, you had the teams that wanted to be good at football, and then you had the teams that had football because guess what? We got 100 male student athletes on our campus. And that number is going down now because they understand we got to have a reason for them to want to stick around.
Oh, there's no doubt. And I will tell you from firsthand experience, there has to be, I don't want to use the word collective, but it's a collective within an institution, not from the standpoint of the Division I NIL thing. I'm not talking about that. But in a similar way, there has to be a monetary commitment to it. I don't care how good a football coach you are. Nick Saban can go to an NAIA school with no resources and not be successful. You have to have support internally from your institution. Jason, we've been out of college now 25 years, you and I. Right? Or no, 20 years. 20 years. Yeah, I'm thinking high school. 20 years, right?
20 plus.
What did Dana cost for tuition the last year you were there? Do you remember? Is that 2002?
2002. I want to say like all in, it was like 18,000 tuition, room and board.
Unbelievable. I would guarantee if Dana College was still operational today and kept up with, the how progression, it's 50K. 50. Yeah. Absolutely it is. I'm telling you right now, my institution, I went to St. Francis. It's over 50K now. I think tuition when I went there, I think it was 14 or 15. I mean,
I'm getting my camera to refocus.
So the cost of private education, that's a whole other discussion. We can get into politics or whatever.
Sorry.
That's a real problem. The cost of private institutions. And I hate seeing great private institutions close. You're seeing it every year now. And that's a real problem. So I think the NAIA has something that is unique in that they're private liberal arts, a lot of faith-based institutions that do have funding outside of just your academics, like the Division III is. So I think that is our niche in the NAIA. We have some scholarship money, but it still takes a group of folks at their institution that's going to be able to put a commitment to it and allow scholarships to be. Again, I think you got to be fully funded to compete at the national level too. You can't nickel and dime it. You can't kind of go dip your toe in. Hopefully it works. you got to go all the way in. I can guarantee you're looking at the Kaisers and the Marians and Indiana Wesleyans and the Frontier Conference. They're fully funded. I will bet my life on it that they have every single opportunity to issue scholarship with NAIA rule. That's a big deal. And I can guarantee you, I know for a fact, Sioux Falls and Carroll back in their dynasty years were absolutely that way. They were supported and they were, following the NAIA rule to the nth degree, but they're putting everything they can into it to be successful, even though they had arguably the best football coaches in NAIA history there. I don't care how good a coach you are, Jason, you have to have the guys and you got to draw them there. And I do think scholarship is a huge thing for our institutions. And like you said, there are other intangibles as well. There's got to be great education. Can you have that faith-based, component to so many of our schools? But yeah, you got to keep them there. You got to get them there. You got to keep them there. No doubt.
Yep. And I won't call out any institutions by name, but having done this now for 20 plus years, I can look at some coaches that had some tremendous runs. They were great. They're great football coaches. Some of them might even be in the Hall of Fame. But then all of a sudden they had a 3 to 5 year stretch where, man, they just did not get it done. 4 and 6, 3 and 7. You go, oh, wow, what's going on there? Well, I can tell you, it's not, the coach didn't forget how to coach. I bet you can go into the institutional finances and their support for that program and you will see a major drop off. And a lot of times you see that happen for new programs or programs that have been around a while that haven't had success, that has success. They go to the postseason and now all of a sudden there's a little bit of a bill that comes with that. And they get some added expenses in there that maybe they weren't covered. And they go, oh, whoa. We don't want to do that. That's not worth it. And guess what? Program suffers, your exposure suffers, and then you kind of come back around full circle to say, now wait a second, maybe that extra $50,000 to $80,000 that we had to spend, that we cut, maybe that was worth it because look at where we're at now. So, but I won't call out any schools by name, but you can look at the history and figure it out.
Oh, no doubt. And the thing is too, leadership change, whether it is athletic director, whether it's a president. I mean, you've been an athletic director. I mean, how are you micromanaged probably to some level with your budget every single year? I mean, it's a real deal at a private institution. You got to make sure every cent is accounted for.
Yep. You got to have, the best programs out there. I will guarantee the president and the athletic director are having a day-to-day conversation about what's going on in athletics and the importance of it. The good ones are.
I'll give you a peek behind the curtain. My dad, Coach Dannelly, was CFO literally every couple of weeks. That's how important the details of what you're spending and how you're spending it is.
Yep. Yeah, it's absolutely that way at a lot of the great institutions that are out there. And you can see the ones that struggle and, they've got to figure it out. And my advice to them is go to a St. Francis, go to an Indiana Wesleyan, go to a Marian, go to a Morningside, go to a Northwestern, go and sit down with their administration and say, how do you do this? We haven't figured it out. What are the little things that you do to make it a little bit different? Another one, and this is maybe why I'm high on Ottawa out of Arizona. I know the administration. I look at the athletic director that was there. He was at Mid-American Nazarene, Kevin Steele. He is one of the best NAIA athletic directors out there. That's why when he said he was going to Ottawa and they're going to start football, I'm like, oh, they're going to be good because they're going to do it right. He's not just going to take a bag of money and just throw it at the football team and say, okay, now win. They're going to do it right. They're going to bring in the kids. They're going to develop them. They're going to have kids of character that are coming in that are going to fit the mold of that institution. And that's why I look at how Ottawa has been able to have that rise these last couple of years. And I can say, well, they've got administrative support. The administration is supporting them. So
it's a big deal. Yeah. It is a big deal. No question.
We could go on for years. Do you hear a corgi barking in the background?
Corgi is. I can hear the corgi for sure.
Yes.
Is the corgi bark with the English accent or no?
I haven't. I need to get that voice translator for a dog.
Yeah. I'd love that. Wouldn't it? Yeah. I just think of the Queen's dogs, the corgis. Every time I hear the corgi, I think of the Queen's dogs.
That's what everybody.
It barks in a British accent.
Yeah. When I walk around with the corgi in public, you get some people. You'll inevitably get the Queen's dog, like this dog is not royalty. Trust me. This dog is, it is on a treat infatuation right now and it knows where the treats are. And this thing will bother me for hours on end until I just inevitably give in and allow it to have all the treats that it wants. Otherwise I will have no peace at all.
I would love to see
handling the 15-month-old daughter has been easier recently than the dog.
The high maintenance dog.
Yes.
I can't imagine what you guys have to do in the winter to get your dog outside.
Oh, she loves the snow.
Oh, really?
She's a snow. Oh, yeah.
But you got to shovel 3 feet out in a little square, and
yeah. I do have to shovel because she's got the little legs. She's
right.
got the tiny legs.
Little short legs. Oh,
but
man.
That dog loves the snow. To go out and be rolling around in it. Unfortunately, it could possibly be within the next month.
Oh, buddy,
I've lived in North Dakota now 10 years ish, and about half of the years we've had snow the first week of October. Doesn't stick around, but it comes. It's not great.
Yeah,
it's not great.
It was in the 80s.
So what do you got? Yeah, what do you got going on the next week? We'll wrap things up here. You got anything big happening in the world of Pat Donley?
Oh, some good work stuff. Busy selling sporting goods. So I got some big meetings this week, which is good. Then some football this weekend. Got a couple weeks off of hockey. Fall break coming up for the kids. So yeah, pretty much it's work and family time and a little bit of break from, again, travel weekends for the hockey season. You know, we're chugging along, but yeah, overall pretty good. How about you?
Nice 15-month 15-month appointment for the daughter on Monday, tomorrow. So we got that happening this week. Got a couple, work things. We've got like a trade show going on in Montana, and I got some people on vacation. So me being the horrible boss that I am occasionally, I actually looked at the schedule and went, it's going to be me and one other guy here running the entire shop a couple days. That's not good. Who allowed that to happen? Oh, I did. Whoops. But it's fine. Things are going good. Harvest is in full season. Everybody knows I work in the world of ag. And since harvest is going and the style of business I work in, we don't have a lot of business that happens during harvest. A lot of our customers are harvesting. And the last thing they want to do is have us come bother them. So it allows us to do a bunch of catch-up things. So that's what this week will be for me in my real life.
It's an interesting world you live in. The whole
it is
agriculture, being on a farm. Yeah, not me.
It's great, man. Here's what I love. It is two completely different parts of my brain. I can come in, be passionate for this, love NAIA football, do this, and then when I shut it off, what I'm going and doing is not like trying to do this again. Like if I was a TV sports director and doing this, it would just be this constantly. And like I step away from this, I go do that. It's absolutely great. I love it. I'm passionate about it. But then when I get a little like, okay, I need to step away from this, I've got this over here now. I got NAIA football. It's fantastic, man.
I'm glad you have that balance because my life is sports. That's all I do. If I had sports did not exist, I couldn't tell you what I'd be doing. I've been a coach. I sell sporting goods. I'm a hockey dad, athlete's dad. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Former coach. I don't know.
No, dude, it's fun, and you get to like me where, eventually if you're like me, I think the wife spends a lot of time rolling her eyes because we can't go any place without me like pointing at a farmstead and the tanks that are on that farmstead and be like, oh, that's a 6,500 gallon vertical, it's black, they got that side gauge on there, probably storing water in there. Oh, they probably got 1034O in that one. And then like we drive a little bit more and it'll be like, did you know an NAIA football team blah 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 is in this town? And she's just like, please stop. So
I was that way this weekend, just driving through these little towns in Michigan. Oh, there's Calvin University. That's an NAIA school. Or it was an NAIA school. Yeah. I think it still is, actually. They don't play football, but yeah, they just see like Cornerstone. That's a good basketball school in Grand Rapids area. Yeah, so anyway, just.
Davenport. They were NAIA, and they were football. They went Division II and all that.
Oh, yeah, just like pointing out stuff. I was like, oh, that's a nice little college campus. I drive through it for a minute, Okay, we're done. My wife's just like, what are you doing?
All right, we should wrap this up. We appreciate everybody checking out the show. A lot of fun, a lot of big games this week. We'll have a lot of stuff coming out on the website, so check out victorysportsnetwork.com. He is Pat Donley. I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. We'll see you next week at the same time, folks. Have yourself a good one. Get out and enjoy some NAIA football.